What's up, everybody? Welcome to the ThinkingCAAP. I'm Beck Moore, CEO here at Community Action Association of Pennsylvania. I want to recognize I'm coming from you today, recording at Bucks County Opportunity Council, one of our amazing agencies in community action. But also with me is my fearless co-host, Heather Holloway. What's up, Heather?
Oh my gosh, what's up? Life is up. Life is amazing. Thank you so much, Beck. I am so happy to be here.
I was just listening to a bunch of our episodes again, and there was one episode in particular that you referred to yourself as Robin to my Batman. And I think we got to think of there's a different phrase there, but I just was listening to some of our episodes and just love having you as a co-host. Just want to give that gratitude to you.
Oh my gosh, I received that gratitude. Thank you so very much. We can be peanut butter and jelly. We can be toast and avocado. I mean, you let me know. We'll figure it out by the next podcast episode.
I love that plan. But with us today, awesome. We have a special guest. I'm going to turn it over to you, Heather, to kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Beck. My goodness, do we have a fantastic guest today on the podcast. We have Brenda Reynolds, founder of BKR Consulting, Inc., a trusted organization and leadership consultant. She's an executive coach. She's a 2-time Amazon best-selling author. Our first one on the podcast, I think so, Beck, right?
I think so. I think officially.
Yeah, and check this out. She also is a TEDxer, an international speaker. She specializes in guiding individuals and client organizations through their now what moments to lead with confidence, navigate change with ease, and build unshakable resilience. Leveraging her 2 corporate leadership roles, her entrepreneurial background, and her ability to convert complex topics into simple strategies, Brenda has served clients including Fortune Brands Innovations, Sherwin-Williams, QVC, Villanova University, Go Wildcats, Junior League International, The Body Shop, Goldman Sachs, and more. Brenda resides in the greater Philadelphia area. And the first question we have to ask you, Brenda, is, are you a Phillies fan?
Yes, I was just to a Phillies game with a client 2 weeks ago. Yes.
Nice. Awesome. I love the hesitation. Then she's like, yeah.
Well, I was like, did she say Eagles or Phillies? I mean, it's yes to both. I don't know why I hesitated, but yes, I was just there recently. Had a blast.
Awesome. Huge Phillies fans over here. Beck, let's turn it back over to you for the first question today. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. And I will say thank you to Brenda for being willing to be on the call today, on the podcast today. I had the great fortune of getting to know Brenda a little bit from my wife, who is actually enrolled in one of Brenda's leadership courses. And I know, I will say, has just spoken so highly of the coaching and the support that Brenda has offered her. So, up close and personal in my life, for the support that she's providing to my amazing wife. So just want to give you that shout out before we jump into questions. So today, when I asked you, we're kind of talking about the podcast, I said, what is something that you really want to kind of hone in on, talk about? And you shared with me that you want to talk about monkey management. So my first question for you is if you can just help our listeners who may not be familiar or ever heard this phrase before, a little bit about what monkey management means and where the concept comes from.
Yes, I can't take credit for it. It is from the late William Onken eons ago, who coined the term. And how he defined a monkey is whatever the next move is when dialogue between 2 parties breaks off. And so we collect monkeys everywhere we go. Leaders in particular. You're walking down the hallway, somebody makes a comment, you say something like, oh, let me look into that. Or I'll take care of that. You get an email. Every email is an incoming monkey. You open up your physical mail. Those are monkeys. Every voicemail, every open loop, every phone call is a monkey. And what I want people to be aware of, and I brought my monkey for those of you who can meet him. This is
so for our listeners, Brenda literally has a monkey right now.
Very cute, very cute. And years ago, the Onken group had this amazing video. I cannot believe it doesn't exist anymore. You had to use the old VHS version of it way back when. But in it, they had these little monkeys dressed up in business attire. And they were swinging from the lights and rolling in from the phone and leaping on your back from the hallway. And what I liked about it is in that video, they showed this monkey, and this is as close as I can get to demonstrating it for those of you who can see it. For as long as you're in dialogue with somebody, it's like one foot is on your shoulder and the other one is on somebody else's shoulder. But when the dialogue breaks off and you part ways, the monkey leaves on somebody's shoulder, one person's shoulder. And I think the overwhelm that we in leadership spaces feel in large part has to do with all of the screaming monkeys on our backs, far more than we can feed. So the question is, what do we do about that?
Yeah, I have a house filled with monkeys right now, and drawers filled and backpacks filled. And if you're neurodivergent, you have ADHD, you might have something called a doom box, which is literally just like stuff you put in a box and eventually you'll get to it. It's like a box of monkeys that are sitting around. So forget the can of worms analogy. I would say it's like boxes of monkeys sitting around, and some of those monkeys have been sitting in there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what I'm talking about,
and this
Google
is
it.
Very violent, and I don't recommend this languaging, but honestly, I'm quoting the late William Onken. He says, some of those monkeys need to be shot. We can't manage them all. And in lighter language, politer language, Beck, sometimes we need to go back to that box of doom or our everyday email box and say, what do I really, if I can get real with myself, am I really ever going to do this?
Right. Yes, that's a conversation I have with myself all the time. So I'm going to say, release the monkeys into the wild. Let them live freely.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah. Or to adapt a saying, not my monkey, not my circus, not my monkey, not my monkey, not my circus. Is that another one we can use?
Yes.
Yeah. PETA, if you're listening, we are not advising about getting rid of monkeys. We love monkeys.
Cute. They're way too cute.
Relocation. Relocation.
Relocating them. So thank you for that. I'd like to kind of dig into this a little bit more and pose a question around what are the beliefs that you feel like that get in the way of, continuing to have the monkey maybe straddle two people, or like not giving up of the monkey. So delegating ultimately, right, is what it comes down to. What are some of the beliefs that get in the way of that? And I know that I can speak to plenty of those things, but would love to hear your take on why this is a challenge oftentimes in business.
Yeah, and I think we can all relate to these, right? Everything from, it's just easier for me to do it myself. I can do it faster. I can do it better, especially if your options are, do I give this to the new person on staff, or I can just do it better and faster. And it's easier because they don't have to train anybody up in it. I don't want to get any undesirable results, and I know the results that I can produce, so maybe I'll just hold on to this one. Or, this task may feel undesirable if I pass it on to someone else. They may feel like I'm dumping on them. The funny thing is, oftentimes what we think is an undesirable task, other people welcome. They don't really find it undesirable. They get a little excited about it. They feel like, oh, Heather had confidence in me to give me this thing. Or some of it's unconscious. Some of it is just, I've gone from being an individual contributor. I'm in an early management position. And I have my identity attached to these things that I do really well. And so I feel confident in those. I want to hang on to those because they put me in a good stead. And we unconsciously hang on to them, which keeps us from doing other work that we really need to be doing. And some of those things are really what get in our way.
So I want to dig into this a little bit, Heather, because I think this is resonating around some couple things that we've talked about.
I got notes.
Yeah.
I got notes.
So I think for me, right, and I'm curious what your reaction is to this, Brenda. I think about, right, being able to offload your monkeys in an effective way, effectively delegating tasks, however you want to describe it, as really understanding your team's strengths and how they show up at work and what they like to own, what gets them excited, what they like to do. And if you can lean into those strengths. So I'll use, shout out to my executive assistant, Jen, who is just a rock star. Inboxologist expert is what I like to call her. She loves a good, complicated project. One of her top strengths, if you're a subscriber to Clifton Strength Finders, is responsibility. And so almost to a fault, like that's her top strength. So when she does something, she's going to dig in hard, right? And she's going to get it done. What I love about her, she's going to check in along the way. But for me, as a leader managing her and utilizing an executive assistant, she's the very first executive assistant that I've had that I've actually trusted to be able to. I think, right, like it was this idea for me about, like, I'm not going to give my team a task that I'm not going to do for myself. And so I just always felt guilty to a degree, and there was a lack of trust that I had, not because the team member wasn't good at what they did. I just couldn't let go of those things. So I'm curious kind of about your reaction to that a little bit.
Well, one of the things that comes up for me is this notion of trust. It's a cycle you create, because if you don't let go and give someone an opportunity to build that muscle, to build that skill, then yeah, you are on shaky ground. You may never come to trust them. You may need to slowly give responsibility over to them in baby steps, let go, build that trust. Otherwise, this is what I say to leaders I talk to. Otherwise, that thing that you keep doing and won't let go of, I hope you like it, because you're going to be doing it for a very long time because no one else can. And I always think about parenting for any of you who are parents. You know, when your kids are in that toddler stage or just learning to do things like tie their shoes, it is tempting every morning when you're trying to rush out the door to just tie their shoes and get on with it. But if you do that forever because you can do it better, you can do it faster, and it's easier, you are de-skilling them, and you may be tying their shoes until they are 18 years old. And it's no different than our teams either. If we aren't letting go and letting people develop and prove themselves, then that trust can't come alongside them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that started for me to be able to let go of things with Jen, was just to make sure that I was really clearly setting my expectations of, like, she communicates to my board. She's an extension of me. So helping her understand what that meant and the language that I wanted to use, and what that looked like. And once we got clear on that, it was easy to let go of.
Yeah, I think it's more, you raise a really excellent point, Beck. It's more when delegation breaks down, or that we're feeling uncomfortable, it's often the delegator who's missing something, who isn't doing the ideal job to set that person up to succeed. And sometimes it's just because we've done it so often, we forget about things. But there are key components to what we need to make sure we're talking to that person about before we turn them loose and ask them to take something over.
Yeah, I use the example a lot of, if I go to a restaurant, right, and I order a cheeseburger and I'm a vegan or a vegetarian, and I don't say that, I don't ask for the Impossible Burger or the veggie patty, I can't be mad when I get a beef patty. So the same is true, right? Like, it's really simple when you think about it. Like, if I have a very specific template that I wanted filled out for an Excel document, for instance, right, give them the template. Otherwise, you're going to get frustrated with yourself. You're going to get frustrated with the employee. It wasn't their fault, right? You just didn't set clear expectations.
Yes. And we talked about styles and strengths too. Different styles have different abilities. So I, on the Myers-Briggs, am highly intuitive. I'm not detail-oriented by nature. So I already know when I delegate, it's not going to be perfect because I'm not detail-oriented. Whereas the person who I'm delegating to probably needs a little more detail than I'm going to give them. So I have to be really intentional to say, no, Brenda, think about this. Give them the nitty gritty, or invite them to ask a lot of questions. Because when they start asking questions, that's when I realize how inept my delegation may have just been.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's absolutely 1,000%. Georgia and I just had my chief strategy officer, we had a little bit of a breakdown on somebody accomplishing something. And she was like, were you going to do this? Was I going to do that? And I think I assumed she was going to do it, and she assumed I was going to do it. And we never clarified. And I was like, did anything ever happen with that? And she's like, oh, I thought you were going to do it. And I just, I am constantly trying to stay authentic about some of my missteps, because I'm certainly not perfect. But Heather, I know you had a note there. I want to make sure to get your question.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. I love the flow that we're going in. It sounds like, Brenda, we said awareness, we lead by, you lead by intuition. I am the same way. So, we have a four-person squad at Holloway Media Services. And so we dove into disc profile, and that was enlightening. We most recently did the AccuMax, which was hugely, is that a word? It was really beneficial. It is now. It was really beneficial to our team. My first hire, Amy, if you're listening, she's direct opposite. I'm in the clouds. She is planted firmly on the ground. And I'm sure, though she would never tell me because she's so sweet, in the first couple of years together, I must have drove her nuts because I just out with ideas and details, get me out of the weeds. I will perish in the weeds. So I feel you on that. So coming to my question here, going back to the different types of examples that you provided, there's a couple words or maybe themes or personality traits of these examples. So we have a control freak, right? Like they must control it. Then we have the person that it's self-preservation. They're going to hold on to it because they want their job. And then finally fear. And that comes down to trust. So how do we become aware that we're this type of person? Because I really do think it comes down to awareness.
How do we point out the monkeys on the back? You got a lot of monkeys on your back, Heather. Hey, there's a monkey hanging out behind you.
Right. Well, I mean, there are ways that this is not going in your favor. To your point, Beck, you know you've got too many monkeys on your back, or you have a trusted colleague that you, Beck, can say to Heather, you've got a lot going on. Is it necessary for you to do all of that? You're going to know something's awry when you're becoming a bottleneck because you've got so many monkeys on your back. Everyone's waiting for you to handle them.
We just talked about this, Heather, on the episode that we recorded about managing up. Sorry, Brenda, to interrupt, but I recognize, and I've said to the team, they talked about it, I think, on the episode, right? Like, I know that I've been the bottleneck, and I need them to tell me and manage up to me, and I will fully accept and be like, okay, I'm stepping out of it. You tell me when you're ready for me to gut check something, and happily will. But I feel that all day long.
I think the other thing is just, you have to realize that when you have that many monkeys on your back, truly other people are supervising you. You have taught them to come to you with their issue, and they say, oh, Heather, this thing is happening. We got to handle it. You notice the word we is a sign that the monkey that's currently astraddle your shoulders is about to hop on you, Heather, the leader's back. We've got a problem is the first step toward shoving that monkey over to you. And so they're supervising you. And I often use the example of, this is like going a little bit off to the side, but it makes a point relative to what you just asked, Heather. You may know that song, 84,600 seconds or minutes or whatever it is from Rent. So imagine that we have 84,600 seconds available to us. But I want to do this first. Imagine I came to you and said, Beck, bad news, Uncle Herman just passed. Or no, didn't pass, but is on the end of passing. And he wants to give his inheritance to you while he's still here to see what you do with it before he does pass. And so start thinking about what you want to do with it, because his one wish is that you spend it. You can't save it. You've got to spend it. So Beck comes up with his list of what he's going to do with those $84,600. But I go to Heather and say, Heather, Beck only has 24 hours to spend this. That's what his uncle stipulated. So why don't we help him? What would you like to do with that $84,600 for, on Beck's behalf? We're going to help him. So
can I answer?
Yeah, give me a couple of juicy answers.
Oh man, first we're going down to the Mercedes dealership and I'm buying my G-Wagon.
And is it for you or is it for Beck?
It's for me.
Oh, it's for you.
Really kind. He's just a really kind guy. He's never going to be able to spend all this money.
Yes. Okay, so maybe that spend it all, probably. Beck, is that what you would have done? Is run out and buy a Mercedes for Heather?
I mean, maybe not. I mean,
you love me.
I do love you very much. I do appreciate you so much, but I don't know that I would. I would probably buy myself a boat first, maybe. Pay off some of my debt. Just
right.
Saying.
And that's the point. We guard our money. We would never freely give our money away to people to spend for us, but we do it all day long with our time. And so that can be a reality check too, to say, ooh, where should I be investing my time differently? And here's another reality check that sometimes gets people thinking differently about letting go, which is, all right, Heather, I know you've got these favorite things you like to do and you don't want to let go of them because your identity is attached to them and you're a rock star. However, if you keep doing them, let's say the day comes when there's a promotional opportunity for you and it's between you and this other candidate. The other candidate, however, has delegated, has developed, has skilled up their team. We've got to make a decision about who gets promoted. People are not aware. They don't think about this, but they've locked themselves. I have a true client situation, a client that is in this situation right now. I saw the light bulb go off in her head when she said, oh, that's why I'm not getting promoted. Yeah, because if they take her out of that position, it all falls apart. If they take the other person who's been delegating and developing the team, it's seamless. They can promote that person. Life goes on in his team. And so we are limiting our own promotability because we're also not freeing ourselves to take more of those high-level roles and responsibilities on either, because we're still down here doing the stuff we've always done. I think it had to do with that not getting promoted because you're hanging on to your stuff. I mean, my client was literally, not only did I see the light bulb go off in her eyes, she got really emotional. She kind of started to cry because she realized what she was contributing to being stuck. It's not that she wasn't capable and competent.
Yes, thank you. That got me back. So back in the day, old school theories, right? Like do what you're told, get it done, work, work, work. This culture is a culture of grinding. Make yourself indispensable. Do we believe in that? Do we believe in that? Do we need to shift that?
I'm so curious about your reaction to that. I'm going to say that there's a way to make yourself indispensable without owning all of it.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, we make ourselves indispensable. However, we want to, if we're doing all of the day in, day out stuff, and we're not letting go of those details, we're limiting our ability to work in a strategic space or a creative space or an expansive space where we're out in the community and we're doing big picture, future focused activities. Long range, that's what's going to make us indispensable. But I think, Heather, you're right. We still glom on to this notion of, but if I'm busy and I'm doing good work and I'm doing a lot of things, surely I'm indispensable.
Yeah.
It's
like trying to
easier to hire someone to do that work, though, than it is. You're more indispensable when you've got that strategic hat on.
Well, I think what this really resonates for me, right, is ensuring that tasks are appropriate for the level of staff member that, right, those tasks should be responsible for. You know, it costs a lot more for the organization for me to schedule all of our board meetings for the year than it does my executive assistant. And so what's the ROI of my time, right? And my board should want me spending time in executive, right, thought about the strategy of the organization and the vision of the organization. But if I'm so busy doing administrative tasks because I can't let go of them, then am I the most effective leader I can be?
Or are you a leader? Are you really just a glorified administrator?
Right, that too. I think that that's really fair. I feel like in the world of human services, this is a hard thing for people to figure out and balance, because there's a certain, everyone, and I would argue that everyone in any business right now is probably overwhelmed to a degree. But in human services, right, like if you think about people being motivated by emotion or right, rational thinking, I would say more often than not in human services, we tend to be more on the emotional side because we're mission-driven people, right? And that's where our focus becomes. And so then there's a different, when people are more emotionally motivated, right, the feelings of guilt that we have, right, to offload something or to, right, effectively delegate something, I feel like it gets in the way. And I do a lot of discussions on this in coaching and managing team members about how to effectively manage, how to effectively delegate, because it's just such a weighted, mission-driven piece in the work that community action does. So for those of you who are listening who are community action, I think that I just want to recognize that. I see you, I feel you, I know that it's a challenge. More often than not, when you ask the question in human services world, I have found I'll ask the question, right? How often are you meeting with your team? Are you having regular one-on-ones? And more often than not, the answer is no, because that manager is also seeing clients, that manager is also doing this, that manager is also doing that, because the balance of work, there's not enough people potentially. But I also think some of that, and I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody, right? But I think a lot of that sometimes is, how do I break down the tasks differently in order to help people be more effectual? And when we spend time digging into a specific task, the gaps that exist in a task, who has what strength to drive a task forward comparatively, it starts to alleviate administrative burden.
I think we also assume that when we delegate, those folks that you're talking about in your organizations who are feeling oriented anyway, we sometimes jump to this conclusion of, yeah, but if I delegate this thing, I don't want to put them out. I don't want to insult them. This seems maybe a little menial. But my wake-up call when I was in a leadership position, we had end-of-year sessions, and one of the conversations our team had was, what's really exciting you about the work you've been doing this year? And which things, if you could trade them off to someone else, you would happily do so? And I was always stunned. I still remember this one exchange where a woman named Esther stepped forward and I said something about, I don't know, editing things and some nitty-gritty detail thing. And Esther spoke up and said, oh, I love editing and proofreading. And she was so turned on by it. And I was like, really? I would have assumed giving her that task would be an insult. And here it was something she loved doing. So we want to test our assumptions too.
And it's an insult to you. You may not want to do it. So therefore, how could anybody else want to do it? As a leader in my agency, first time entrepreneur, it was all on me for the first 3 years. And I hired Amy. And I went through those growing pains of, you really want to do this? Or like finding the tasks for Amy. Last year in 2024, I spent the entire year with Women's Business Enterprise National Council, WBENC. And we had back-to-back trainings on executive leadership. And there's so much content around delegation, because we just want to hold on to it. I'm going to say 3 words to you, and I just want to hear your reaction. Zone of genius. Zone of genius. Do we know what that is?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know what this phrase is.
Oh, cool. Brenda, do you have a take on that? Because I learned about this back in 2022 and it changed my life.
I think it's about staying in our zone of genius. What is the stuff that you need to do that no one else can do? So back to Beck's example with the team members, no one else can have one-on-ones with your team and help them feel valued, have great conversations, supportive conversations, and retain them. That's a leader's job. No one else can do that. That's in your zone of genius, as well as perhaps it's, hey, you're the biggest strategic thinker in the group. That's your zone of genius. You want more of your work falling there than in the other places that might be fun, or you don't want to give them up, because what I find is as we get promoted through the ranks, sometimes we get a little further and further and further away from the work we really love to do.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a hard thing.
It is, especially when you're talking about organizations like yours who are very heart-centered, mission-driven. They're in it for serving that mission. But you start getting promoted more and more and more, and you're getting a bit more removed from that. It's different. Yeah. Tell me, Heather, what your take on the zone of genius is.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for asking, because I wanted a part 2 to this, because the way I was taught, Beck, zone of genius. Okay, you have the things you love to do in your work, the things you have to do in your work, and then the things you absolutely despise. So the love and the despise, they can go somewhere, but the things that you have to do, you have to do. So Brenda, is there like a, that's good, but a layer deep, should we go a layer deeper there to get on the strategic, as leaders, we are hanging out in meetings and planning strategy and the vision. So your take on zone of genius, things you love to do, things have to do or are okay doing, and then things you delegate.
Oh, you want my own personal example?
What do you think about that?
I think it's right on.
Oh, nice.
Whether you're an entrepreneur or you are a leader, you have them. Now, and it's slightly different for an entrepreneur. I do my zone of genius and say, what am I either not great at, don't like to do, procrastinate, will never get done if I have to do it. I better be outsourcing that.
Yes.
And man, does that
Yes.
that helps me to focus on the love to do. This is what I do well, so I outsource my social media marketing and I outsource my finances. You don't want me doing my accounting and finances.
Samesies.
No.
Samesies. I mean,
Right.
That's why, Heather exists at CAAP, because we needed to outsource, because I know just enough to be dangerous. Not my skill set. I know, enough, but, I can ask good questions, but otherwise, like, I need the experts to do it. The same for finances. Like when I first got here, we had a finance person. She ended up leaving, and I was like, that's not my sweet spot. I don't want to have to manage those processes. I've played a CFO on television. I'm not good at it. I can manage the finances of the organization fine, right? I can be the strategy person. I can speak to the P&L, but I'm not doing the books, right? Like that's not, I know how to, but I don't want to. So thank you very much to Miller Dixon Drake, our financial services team at CAAP. Feel free to call us and sponsor our podcast, by the way. But I just think, right, like to your point, I am a procrastinator. I will openly admit that. The things I procrastinate on the hardest are the things that I just don't like. It's the fine details of something, right? It's getting something across the finish line. I'm your idea guy all day long. I can create big strategy. It's why I have a team of two people in particular who are specifically really detail oriented. Shout out to Erica Carpin, our director of operations, Georgia Del Freo, our chief strategy officer, right? Like they make big things happen here.
Mm-hmm.
All day long.
And I think at every level, you don't have to be the CEO. You don't have to be the head of an entrepreneurial endeavor to be thinking this way. So for anyone who's in their roles, I think this applies to say, even in our personal lives, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I watched the angst my oldest son experienced right before he mowed his lawn a few weeks ago. It is a bear of a lawn to mow. I mean, the emotion that came pouring out of his body was outrageous. And I'm sitting back watching the whole thing thinking, you should be hiring someone to do this.
Yeah, somebody can do that.
Why are you spending your time doing? He'll figure it out eventually. But we all have those things in our personal life and in our professional life where just because you can do it doesn't mean you should be doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I ultimately think if you are the chief banana in charge or a manager of teams in general, I would encourage you to really get to a point where you can identify what are the right strengths, skills, whatever you want to describe it, to hire for. To your point, Heather, right, to your point, Brenda, when I look at CAAP and how we've been able to evolve so quickly, it's because we've had people who have really excelled and complemented one another to do this. Otherwise, we would have never gotten the things done that we've done in the last 3.5 years and grown at the rate that we've grown. It's because of really getting visceral and like very specific about, I need somebody with these specific skill sets.
And then, Beck, not only do we hire them and know they've got the skills and ability, this is important and we haven't said it yet. We've got to delegate the appropriate amount of authority along with the task, or we are setting them up to fail. And if you want to humor me with this notion, I see light bulbs often go off with leaders around this notion of levels of decision making. When you delegate, we can use this as a leader, we can use this when we delegate. But a level 1 decision is leader made. This is a decision the leader makes, bar none. And there are very appropriate decisions that leaders just make. That's it. Then there's the level 2 decision, and there's 2A and 2B. 2A is, I'm going to solicit quietly. I'm going to solicit input from people, and then I'll make the decision. 2B is, I'm going to be very transparent to say, I don't know, I'm going to check in with you all. I'm going to check in with people. We're going to talk about it at the meeting. I'm going to gather information. Now, I'm still going to make the decision, and it may or may not go the way you think it should. But we're real clear about that. Then a level 3 decision is, we're going to make the decision. It may be a consensus decision. Level 4 is, why don't you drive this one and you ultimately make the decision, but check in with me before you pull the trigger on the decision. And a level 5 is just, it's all yours, go all day long. Plan the team picnic. I don't care where we go, what we eat. Here's your budget. Here are the parameters. As long as you follow those, it's you all day long. And we often have a lot of miscommunication when, as leaders, we're not clear about the level the decision is going to be made at, because you go out and you start talking to employees about their opinions, and that's a level 2B. And so they think, they gather around the water cooler and say, yeah, we told Beck this is what we want. We're pretty sure we're going to get it, right? And then Beck comes out and does the opposite. And they go, whoa, that was a betrayal. What's up with the trust just went down. So we need to be really clear, what level is the decision being made and how much authority are we giving people when we involve them?
I love that. The authority scale. I love that. Is this in a book somewhere we can get a copy of?
No, I haven't written about that, but
that's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm talking about it. That's what matters. I'm putting it out.
Yes.
But
yes,
I don't think we've mentioned this yet. We want to make sure to give a shout out to your book, Brenda. So TBD, to be determined, leading with clarity and confidence in certain times. So yes, if you're watching, she's showing your book right now, but born of your own personal and professional experience, and now what moments, TBD, the sort of the description is, right, helps leaders find power and clarity in the midst of any change. Easy read with big impact, and we know that leaders are busy. It's available on Audible for anyone who prefers to listen, and it's, of course, as you mentioned already, Brenda, narrated by you. So appreciate you sharing that with us, and look forward to you writing about this topic, because I think it's something that more leaders need to think about. And it's something that I think it goes to one of the questions that I want to kind of get us close to our wrap up point here around is, what are some of those, I think, strategies for leaders to avoid the monkeys jumping out of their back? So I think, right, like you talked about the level of decision-making power. Is there anything else that you want to point out there?
What we haven't talked about yet, and I think it's really important, is, what does effective delegation sound like? What are the ingredients? Because we've all agreed maybe we are more intuitive and less detail-oriented, yet the people we're delegating to need those details. So our job, and I like to use this metaphor of, our job is to create a picture frame for what we're delegating. And then they can paint inside of that frame and be on track. But if we never give them the frame, they don't know where the goal is. So what is the exact scope that you're delegating to them? What are you expecting them to do? Do you have examples of effective results? Maybe you've got a template or a report from before that was really well received and they can use it as a model. But not only what are their job aids and tools they can use, are there other people on your team or you? When do you continue to become a resource to them? Or who else might you point them toward? So we have the what are you going to do and the how are you going to do it, so they know what success looks like. When is this due, and will there be milestone check-ins along the way? And if so, who's going to initiate those? Will they be part of your one-on-one discussion? Or is this something you want them to come to you with, which is ideal, by the way? Otherwise, you've got yet another monkey on your back, leader.
Yep,
See?
absolutely.
So you're going to say,
Yes.
Heather, when you get to this point in the project, check in with me. Let's review what you've done before you go further, because you may be off track. And I don't want you to keep doing these calculations based on the wrong numbers. And I've got an example of this from a situation that I became aware of last week, where this young woman who was brand new on her team, it was her first task with the team. And she was, you want to make a good impression. Here you are, you're doing your thing. She's crunching numbers because she's low person on the totem pole. The client, who had been very ambiguous in their delegating, wasn't crystal clear about which numbers on the spreadsheet should be referenced for her calculations. She ended up in a room with 20 head honchos from a prospective client and on her own team, with everyone looking at her because this wasn't right. But really, it wasn't her fault. It was the client who was not clear in the delegation. The young woman was traumatized. So when delegation goes wrong, it can have really dramatic effects. We've already talked about the level of authority. We want them to know, what level of authority they have for decision making, how you're going to measure the outcome in their performance, and how and when they're going to get feedback. So those are the key facets that we want to make sure that discussion covers. It's not just a quick toss it to you. There's a little more to it than that.
Right. I mean, if you want to get to Arizona, but you put coordinates in for Colorado, guess what's going to happen? I mean, goodness gracious. Yeah.
I want to ask, I think, one more question, unless Heather has another one.
Go for it.
And then give you a chance, Brenda, to talk about anything else that's still top of mind for you that we haven't really dug into that you wanted to talk about today. But, one of the things that we're just spending some time with the team here talking about was about workplace culture and about effective management and just some basic, skills and tips and tricks. And one of the things I spent a little bit of time talking about is workplace PTSD. And I think as a society, we have not, Heather, I know you and I have talked about this. I was just listening to one of our prior episodes where we were kind of unboxing some of what your experiences were, right? Getting yelled at, being told, right, like how you to show up, right? Like physically. I had somebody who threw a chair at me, right? More often than not, we experience the things that we don't want to embody as leaders, as team members. And I think there is a fair amount of workplace PTSD that a lot of people bring with them in the workplace that they haven't unboxed, they haven't evaluated, right? Like, how is this impacting how I show up in my new workplace? And then managers, because we just don't talk, this isn't something we talk about very often. We have our own. And so, right, like how we show up for each other is impacted by those experiences. And I think for me, it's something that we've talked about very openly within our team at CAAP about as something that we need to better understand about ourselves. And that if I say something, I mean it, right? And I'm going to continue to showcase that and be vulnerable about it and be authentic about it. And if I'm not, call me out. But right, like this is what you see is what you get. There is no hidden agenda here. And for many of our team, right, there was always a hidden agenda with prior management. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this topic, because I think it's something that when I get my leadership book out, it'll be something that I'm going to unbox. But just curious.
No, it's right on. I mean, honestly, especially entrepreneurs, I think if you ask entrepreneurs why they started their business, it's often based on some traumatic event they had where they just said, oh my gosh, I think I'm just going to start my own business. That was true for me. In both of the corporate positions I had some unthinkable leaders. In one case, walked in, they came in after me. I had established credibility across this organization with 40 offices across the country and worked up and down the system. And I thought this was a good thing. She's walking in, I'm going to make her life and job easy. And the first thing she did was literally pull out an org chart. And I write about this in my book, TBD. She pulled out an org chart and a big, thick red marker. And she drew a line on the org chart and she said, so you actually talk to these people, pointing above the line? And I said, yeah, all the time. She said, well, you don't any longer. They're mine.
Oh,
Yes. And so that unraveled to issues around related to my maternity leave, not being told while I was on leave that when I came back, I was actually being replaced by the person that I had hired and trained. Luckily, we were friends, and she knew me. And I said, hey, Kim, I just want you to know, based on this, I am going to be starting my own business. I don't want to leave you high and dry. I'm giving you a 4-month notice. I will tell you when I get my first client booked, and then I'll give you 4 months so I can just tie things up and not leave her in the lurch. She said, okay. So she went and told our boss this, who said, to your earlier point back about you never know what other people's stuff is. And she said, what is Brenda trying to pull? Kim said, I think she's trying to not leave us high and dry. And she said, I don't trust it. Kim goes, then you don't know Brenda very well. She said, I want her, where's her 2-week notice? So I gave her my 2-week notice. I worked my 2 weeks. I left, started my business. Maybe a month later, I got a phone call from the organization saying, hey, we're wondering how much you would charge us to finish the work you were doing.
You can't afford me. No, go ahead.
This is what I was trying to avoid. But my answer, Heather, was 3 times what you were paying me.
Yes, you gave them tax on it.
Good
Oh,
for you.
right.
It
Yes.
helped me launch my business. But clearly, I've certainly had trauma around leaders who have said, oh, no, this is my turf. Don't talk to these people. Essentially, they were threatened, or they didn't trust that I was being truthful. Now, to make the story sweeter, she got fired after I left eventually. To make the story sweeter, I got a phone call a year later. She said, oh man, I am in a hot mess down here in this new organization. And the only person I think I could trust to help us figure it out is you. Can we hire you? Now, I had my own trauma about walking into a situation like that again. So to mitigate it, I took a colleague with me and we partnered. So at any given time, there were 2 of us in the room and we could, really move things forward. She sort of stayed out of our way. We fixed the problem and left. But there is a lot of trauma that people carry, myself included.
Yeah. I wish that it's like how can we start our onboarding process with a new team member by unboxing our trauma so that we don't step in it again?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an important concept to think about. It's like, I use the example for people, right? Like, have you ever asked your team how they want to be communicated with, right? Like, is Teams better for them? Is email better for them? Is text message? Like, what's the thing, right? Would they prefer a Zoom meeting? Would they prefer in person about these topics? And if we can figure that out, because communication is usually one of the things that if you do a workplace culture survey, you'll see more often than not something about communications. And it's because, right, like, communication to you is something different to me, and we don't define that very often. And so I feel like there has to be a healthier way of understanding where we came from, what we carry with us with respect to workplace trauma, so that we help somebody feel secure and safe. I think the challenge that
I've never thought about this until now, Beck, but you're making me think about it, which is sometimes I work with leaders who are new in their roles to do that new leader assimilation. Come in, interview their team members, get them a lot of good data to jumpstart their job really well. And I've never asked it, but as a third party, someone who's involved in new leader assimilation could ask a question like that and try to collect that anonymous data, confidential data, because some of that is gold for the person starting their job to know what sensitivities their team members have.
Right. How can I support you if I don't understand your triggers? I know that work isn't therapy, but in order for someone, I feel like I preach this fairly often, so I'll get on my soapbox about it. I feel like we can't help somebody do the best job that they can if they don't feel safe and secure. And psychological safety is number one thing that people want in the workplace right now. And so how do we figure out a place to create that and a starting point? And now, for somebody like me who doesn't have a lot of trust in the workplace to begin with, I may not be as forthcoming on month 1 as I am in, month 5 after I start to feel safe. But I think there's value in really unpacking that in order for people to feel safe, effective, and show up as their best selves. And so that as a manager, you avoid those pitfalls, right? Or the triggers that somebody has that you didn't put there, but they exist.
Even as a
And
consultant, and I may have shared this with you back in a past conversation, I sometimes stumble onto it, and I've got to make my sensitivities more heightened than ever, because I'll often do an icebreaker or some kind of sharing as part of a team event as we warm up. And I was with a team I got the feedback of, some of us have had some traumatic stuff happen in high school or as younger people. And we are really uncomfortable anytime you ask us to reflect back and share something from that part of our life. So for that team, and I work with them on a routine basis, I will never go back and put them on the spot around that, because I know there's a trauma for somebody embedded in there. I don't know who, it doesn't matter. I'm glad the feedback came my way and they trusted me with it. And I am highly sensitive, not only now with that group, with other groups. And it's changed my behavior.
Well, and good for you for creating a space that somebody felt like they could share that with you, and good for you. And you wouldn't be doing the things that you're doing if you hadn't. But I appreciate that you also listened and you were thoughtful about it, because there have been definitely times I've shared things with other leaders, and it's just it's not respected. And that's when right? It's time to go. It's time to go. This is not helpful or healthy. I've started to put, I don't know if anybody's heard this song before. I've started to put in my workplace culture presentations a song about boundary setting, and it's a kid's song about, right, like, no, I don't like that. This is a boundary. And it's like, I'm not going to sing it because I have a terrible singing voice, but seriously, look it up, the boundary song. And I think sometimes boundary setting in the workplace pushes on people's egos and also like triggers some people with PTSD. So I think it's all really important dynamics to figure out to effectively manage your team, for sure.
And to bring our topic back to a positive place, I think it's all tied together.
Please, yeah.
No, it's all tied together, Beck, which is if we can reframe how we see delegating. Delegating as a word, it probably has a little bit of a negative connotation. It's not a feel-good word. But done well is a beautiful thing, because we're saying to somebody, I see you. I value you. I trust you. I need you. I know you're going to keep growing. And I'm here for that. And it can be a really beautiful thing.
Yes. Thank you for that. I love that so much.
Yeah. You brought up many positive benefits. You become promotable, if that's a word. You free up space for creativity. You lead with strategy and all the juicy goodness that you just imparted on us today. So there are so many beautiful, positive effects of delegation done right.
Delegation done right. I love it, Heather. Coin that.
It's yours. It's yours.
We're putting it on a t-shirt, y'all. We have a lot of t-shirts.
Heather, we have a lot of this episode.
Yes. Yeah.
We need to start our t-shirt business, Heather, because we've got some good t-shirts.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna recap the ThinkingCAAP to pull some out.
Yep.
So I know you don't know if you're peanut butter and jelly yet or what you are, but I had an image of us today.
I'm dying to know.
Oh, and it's just on brand as we leave today. We want some more, right?
Some more.
Got graham cracker, chocolate, and marshmallow. Boom.
Oh my, I love it.
I'm in. Brenda, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today? Any other plugs you want to do? I love a good shameless plug. I know Heather does as a marketing professional. So anything else that you want to share, plug, or say to our listeners?
Thank you for the few seconds to do what women often don't do, which is talk about themselves in a positive way. So I'm going to do it. No, seriously, I am very passionate right now. What I want to give a plug for is a program that Beck kind of foreshadowed early in the talk, which is called Coming Together, because embedded in the word together is the word to get her. It is a virtual year-long women's leadership development and mastermind situation. It's done over Zoom. We meet twice a month. You get leadership content focused on women in an intimate setting. It's a small group, intimate setting. You get mastermind opportunities for real world situations, a 2-day getaway retreat, an online portal of resources, 4 one-on-one coaching sessions with me throughout the year. And the registration is opening for the September 15th cohort. Registration is now open. So you can go to my website, which is Brenda K. Reynolds, REYNOLDS.com. Programs, drop down says Coming Together. Learn all you want to. I'd love to see any folks who have that inclination talking to me for a no obligation, no pressure discovery call. See if we're a good fit.
And for our listeners who are within the Community Action Association of Pennsylvania network, Brenda and I are having a couple conversations on how we can bring some of her services to our network. And so more to come on that. I know that I've got a monkey on my back right now of this proposal. And so this is me holding myself accountable, Brenda, to dealing with that monkey so I can set it free into the wild.
I can't get it to come on your shoulder, but I really wish I could.
It's on my shoulder. I acknowledge the monkey is on my shoulder, and I will absolutely be following up to put the monkeys back on your shoulders.
Key the virtual monkey.
I know, Amy, if you're out there, our editor, feel free to put a cartoon monkey in our video. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule and sharing what I know our listeners will really appreciate. I know that what you've shared resonated with me. I know it's resonated with Heather.
Oh boy, did it ever. Thank you so much, Brenda. This was a master class. So if you loved this podcast, it just makes sense to get in on the mastermind where you get this for a year. Can you imagine how much you would grow? So please check that out.
Absolutely.
So good.
My pleasure. This is in my zone of genius. This is one of the things I love to do, and I especially love doing it with both of you today. So thank you.
Oh,
thank you for that. Thank you to all of our listeners.
Thank
you to all of our listeners for hanging out with us, putting on your thinking caps today, and stay tuned for many more good episodes. And we look forward to seeing you back again. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Brenda. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of this episode of the Thinking CAAP. Check the show notes for resources and links to other episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and follow to be notified when new episodes are released. If you have any community action questions you'd like Beck or one of our local experts to answer in a future episode, please email your questions about community action to info@thecaap.org. Subject line, Thinking CAAP.